Hello, how are you? My name is Mwalimu Jogona. Welcome to this session. We are going to be discussing a regional body in Africa. That is Organization of African Union, simply called the OAU. The idea of forming the OAU came from prominent Africans who were organized in the Pan-African movement. Some of these leaders were Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, Haile Selassie of Ethiopia, and other prominent leaders in Africa. The aim of the Pan-African movement was to liberate and free all Africans or in other words, all black people of African origin from slavery and oppression. You remember, in the transatlantic trade and even in the 18th century, Africans were being sold as slaves into countries like the United States of America. And therefore, from the Pan-African movement, the idea of forming a body that will unite all African countries was developed. And this idea brought birth to the Organization of African Union. So, on the 25th of May 1963, 25th May 1963, African leaders from only the countries that had acquired independence came together in a meeting that was held in Accra, in Ghana, precursor meeting towards the formation of the Organization of African Union. And so, the OAU, its main objective or its main reason for its formation was to liberate African countries from colonialism. That was the main reason for the formation of the Organization of African Union in 25th of May 1963. You find that at that time, most of the African countries, Kenya included, had not acquired independence. Only a few countries, like the first black African country in Africa to acquire independence, Ghana, whose headquarters or capital is at Accra, is among the few countries which had acquired independence at that time. So, the main problem that was facing the Organization of African Union at that time was colonization. And the members of African countries were led by the heads of state. And these people became the founder members. So when we talk about founder members, some leaders, like number one, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, Nelson Mandela of South Africa, that is number two, and number three, Robert Mugabe, were not founder members of the OAU. If you take an example of Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, by that time, Jomo Kenyatta was still in detention. He was among the Kapenguria Six. So, it is wrong to say in an exam that Jomo Kenyatta was a founder member of the Organization of African Union, because we have learned that by that time Jomo Kenyatta was still in detention, so he was not a founder member, together with Nelson Mandela, who was still in prison at the Robben Island in South Africa before the Organization of African Union was formed. And that means only the independent African countries which were allowed to join the Organization of African Union. Kenya came to get or to attain independence on the 1st of June in 1963. So by 25th May 1963, Kenya had not yet attained independence, and therefore Jomo Kenyatta was not a founder member. My dear viewers, after many of the African countries acquired independence, you need to understand that the first objective, which was to liberate, that is to free African countries from independence, from colonialism, had already been achieved. And therefore, its main objective of formation had been acquired. And so, because of that reason, African leaders, led by the late Muammar Gaddafi, the former president of Libya, he initiated the idea of changing the Organization of African Union into the present African Union, in short, AU. So, in 2002, in Durban, in South Africa, a decision was made in which the Organization of African Union, the OAU, was changed into the present African Union. The headquarters of the African Union are in Addis Ababa, in Ethiopia. Remember that Ethiopia, together with the Liberia, are the only African countries which were never colonized. Ethiopia was able to defeat the Italians, led by Emperor Menelik Mengistu, to defeat the Italians at the Battle of Adwa. And so, Ethiopia was never colonized, together with Liberia, which had been bought by some American investors to settle the freed slaves. So Liberia is a French word. It means liberty. Liberty means freedom. A country that had been bought by some American investors to settle slaves who had been freed from slavery. So those two countries in Africa were never colonized. Having said that, let us look at the main objective of the African Union. The main objective of the African Union was to do three things that I'm going to mention. Number one, it was to promote economic, social, and political development. So, the main objective of the formation of the African Union, when it was changed at Durban in South Africa, it was to deal with three things. Number one, economic development, political development, and social development among its members. So that is the main function or the main objective of the African Union. Remember, all African countries, the 52 African countries, are members of the African Union, except for Morocco. Morocco had withdrawn its membership because the African Union recognized Western Sahara as a sovereign country. So Morocco withdrew its membership from African Union because African Union recognized Western Sahara, which was a part of Morocco, according to what we learned from the history books, as a sovereign country. And therefore, Morocco withdrew its membership from African Union. So Morocco is not a member of the African Union. But all other countries are members. Then, which is the main challenge? The main challenge that is being experienced by the African Union. The main challenge is the political instability in some member countries. You find that countries like Somalia, Sudan are war-torn countries. There is a lot of political instability, a lot of insecurity. And this means that the economies of these countries are not doing well. There is no peace. And the African Union does not have a standing military. It has to depend on the contribution of its members in order to intervene in countries that are having conflicts. A good example, for example, take our neighboring country, Somalia. You find that the African Union has deployed AMISOM. AMISOM stands for African Mission in Somalia. The members of the armed forces in AMISOM have been drawn from the members of African Union, Kenya included. We have the Kenya Defense Forces serving in the AMISOM. Therefore, that is one of the greatest challenge, which is the main achievement of the OAU and the AU. The OAU was able to help liberate African countries from colonialism, while the AU has been able to unite the African countries together. So, my dear viewer, having said that, that brings us an end to the end of our session today. I hope you have enjoyed and I hope you have learned something. Thank you very much.